Yeah, that was Seth, I think.
Gee, I couldn't tell.
John, I assume you have more class than that, so
Yes.
I went straight to Seth.
Same amount of beer, just more class.
Actually, it's more that I have more projection, so it would probably be louder.
So we're going downhill right off the bat. Great.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, episode 79. It's Thursday, April 15th, 2015. I'm your host today, Stephen Seagraves, joined by Seth Miller, who is in Hamburg. Hey, Seth.
Hello, and happy tax day.
Yeah. I love this day, yes. Foz is also with us. Hey, Foz.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. And then we have a special guest, airline journalist John Walton, who has just launched the Upfront column covering business, first class, and premium travel at runwaygirlnetwork.com. Hey, John.
Hello.
Glad to have you on the show again. I think you've been on a few special episodes.
Yeah, great to be back.
Yeah.
I have to question it. Should I have been trying to say happy tax day in German? And if so, are there words we know that make that work?
Fröhliche Taxentag.
The answer to that is no, I should not be trying to say it.
Yeah, probably not.
That sounds worse than tax day. That actually makes tax day sound worse, yes. So.
Glücklich Steuertag, Google Translate says.
That sounds better. I like that.
It's notoriously bad for German, though, so it's probably wrong.
Right.
So today, guys, we're going to cover the American U.S. Airways single operating certificate, United playing a little dirty, some Thai safety standards, Hamburg, and a rant sans Rolo, and then a review of Korean Air first from John. How's that sound? Good? I think it's enough to fill the show. We'll probably go over an hour anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
When don't we?
I'll run out of beer eventually, so you know.
So first up, let's talk about the single operating certificate. I think this happened last week. Well, it would have been 2 weeks by the time this airs. And American and U.S. are now using a single certificate, which means when the call sign, right, has been retired, Cactus, which U.S. Airways that was their call sign on air traffic control. What else does it mean, though, Seth?
Very little. It's operating procedures, so safety standards, things like how the pilots all work. Literally, it's like the manuals have all been rewritten and consolidated into the same process on both sides of the company. When United did this with the United Continental certificate, they had like crazy things they had to work out. Like, is there one wing walker or two as planes pull in and push back from gates? I think U.S. and American had many fewer issues like that where there were significant differences in operations. Obviously, for air traffic control, it's now sort of the biggest issue. All the U.S. pilots have to now call themselves as American flight numbers instead of Cactus flight numbers.
Yep.
But it is absolutely one of the steps in the process towards completing the merger. It is nowhere close to completing the merger. And I think that's one of the sort of interesting things about the way things are, the story is being told. It's part of the process, but as a customer, you shouldn't notice a difference from that one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are confused as, this isn't the U.S. Airways selling tickets now as American. Like, they're still operating kind of as two separate carriers still as far as ticketing, right? Correct.
So you can still buy a U.S. ticket or an American ticket. In theory, they've fixed all the bugs and everything's published the same, but not always. And eventually we'll get to a single system, but they're still running both Sabre and Shares in parallel. We're nowhere close to, and I shouldn't say nowhere close, we're getting close, but we're not quite to the point where Shares is gone. And it's interesting, from what I've read, it's not going to be a straight cut, right? They're not going to just one day move all the reservations from one system to the other and call it, kill Shares and call it a day. Mm-hmm. So I think that's actually more interesting than the single operating certificate part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, it seems clear to me from previous mergers in various continents that when you move over your reservation systems and the IT backend for the entire airline, that's when customers really start noticing, mainly because it starts going wrong. So if they can avoid that with this sort of multiple little bangs rather than one big bang, I think that'll be a real win for them.
Yeah, and from what I've read, and I haven't really fact-checked it or double-checked it or even single-checked it, but someone wrote it once on the internet, so it must be true. The way they plan on doing that in that sort of migration for getting rid of Shares is eventually to just stop selling tickets on U.S. Airways. And there'll be a hard cut at some point, but they're not going to kill the old U.S. Airways reservations. They're just going to stop selling new ones.
Yeah, so
And-
the process is that sometime in September or August, I believe, they've asked 8 travel agents to issue everything in 001 stock.
Right.
And anything that's issued on 037, they've asked to go back and reissue on 001 to minimize the number of reservations they have to move over come October, which is when they're targeting the merging of the PSS.
Right. And so what'll happen is basically, it's surprisingly few reservations that book this far out. I think the numbers, they shared some statistic and it was surprising. I mean, even for people that expect, no one books more than 6 weeks out or whatever, the number is still shockingly low to me. And so there'll still be sort of a few reservations out there on the old stock and on the old U.S. system, but in that sort of 6-week window where they sort of try to drain it down, the number of legacy U.S. reservations that still have to be honored will be shockingly low. And basically because they've managed to sort of create a dupe of all the U.S. reservations in the American system, and they'll be able to continue to do that because there's so few of them, the process will be vaguely this sort of situation where no one will notice that they sort of stopped running on shares even though they stopped running on shares.
So what does this mean for then like the frequent flyer program? I mean, has that taken place yet? The merger of those two things?
Yes.
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay.
Well, the frequent flyer programs merged last week. Or was it 2 weeks?
I now got emails
Sort of.
from American Airlines rather than US Airways for my former dividend miles account.
What do you mean, sort of? The U.S. Air accounts are gone. They're using your Advantage account. What am I missing?
What happens when you fly a U.S. coded flight and try to credit it to Alaska?
Won't credit.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
There's a couple little details out there that are still not quite resolved.
Yeah, so I went and I actually spoke with an Alaskan rep about this because I was looking at travel on U.S. Airways quite heavily because they're the only ones that sell Portland to Charlotte, and I was having to make that trip. And they told me that at no time in the near future will those flights get credit. It can't be a code share, basically, with U.S. Air.
Right, and that's an Alaska Air Mileage Plan thing, right? Where it has to be coded and operated by the same carrier. They don't credit code shares, and I understand that based on how their partnerships are written up, how those deals get done. But there's a weird sort of quirk with the American U.S. Airways relationship and how it handles partners, non-alliance partners.
What do you mean by that?
And just things like how does it credit to mileage plan? How does it credit to other partners? There's, if it's all within one world, it's easy. But when you start talking about non-alliance partners, things get a little fuzzy.
And that's true, I think, worldwide. I mean, Virgin Australia down under is known to having a lot of bilateral partnerships, yet not being a member of the alliances. But once you start getting into the weeds, I mean, in theory, if you waive a Virgin Australia Platinum or Gold card at a Delta lounge, you're supposed to be able to get into the Sky Club even if you're flying domestically. Now, nobody's told Misty and Memphis this, so you sort of get spurned and you have to sort of fish around and see if you've got an Amex Platinum or something else. It's one of those issues with bilateral agreements like Alaska does.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder if American and U.S. could do something to kind of mitigate that problem, right? Where they could they maybe contact Alaska and say, hey, look,
Well, to me, the question really becomes, how is American plan on making this relationship go moving forward? Are they really going to play a game where, like, for 6 months these flights sort of don't exist, and then come October they're all just American operated, American coded because we switched PSS?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, why aren't they just that now? Like, how is that contract written that it can't handle Americans saying, no, really, like, we're going here anyways, and we like you as a partner, and we're best buddies,
and we're not Delta,
and screw Delta, so let's just make this shit happen now.
Yeah.
But really, is this any different than a regional carrier coming into the foray? Like when Americans started giving some of their flying to SkyWest, they didn't have to do anything extra for that.
But those were flights,
They
right?
designated certain flight number ranges.
Yeah.
So it's just
right? Stephen, we were tweeting about this the other day when someone was asking, are these all Delta code shares? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
But there are massive blocks of the AA flight number ranges that are not creditable to mileage plan because they're code shares. And part of me wonders, why hasn't the U.S. operated section of that mapping simply been included all of a sudden? What are they waiting for? Is there some other surprise coming down the pike that we're all going to get screwed by?
I would hope not. I mean, to me, it seems like the partnership between American and Alaska is stronger than certainly the one with Delta at this point. And I think that if they said something, because there's a lot of benefits when you fly American with an Alaskan mileage plan number in there. You get MCE access, exit rows, etc. You get all these benefits. You get free bags. I can't see Alaskan saying we don't want that anymore simply because you're adding more planes to the fleet of American numbers.
Here's the thing, though, right? The reason that partnership existed is because American had minimal coverage on the West Coast. And admittedly, U.S. is only Phoenix. It's not truly on the coast. But how is it that the world's largest carrier needs help from Alaska Airlines to fill out its route map?
I think they still do. I mean,
They do. You're right. They absolutely do because they still have shit on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But is that a weird situation where like Americans got to be looking at this and saying, "Gosh, this is awkward. We need to change"?
Or they're just saying, "Well, okay, that's fine. We'll stick with our partnership with Alaska." I mean, it's an interesting question.
I mean,
But if
American
it's
has.
that, John, why haven't they just integrated the U.S. flight numbers?
Right. Well, never to matters what can be adequately explained by stupidity or airline IT.
Sure.
I mean, American, they have been growing LA, so, I mean, do they really want to have to manage another partner? How much of the business are they pulling between Seattle and Phoenix to points other than LA?
And that's basically what I was getting at. And I wrote the other day, it's been a couple weeks now, but I wrote something sort of saying, how long is that relationship for the world? And everybody kind of freaked out. But it's like, I don't know, but I've got to wonder a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, there will obviously be some efficiencies from joining the US and American networks. Where are they going to put those extra planes and extra flights? The natural answer would seem to be in the Northwest, but who knows?
But then I think that they would be going straight head to head with Delta and Alaska. I don't know. I mean, it seems odd to me. It still seems odd to me that Delta and Alaska are so close, or close at all.
Yeah. Well, Delta has a lot of frenemies. I mean, there's no love lost between Delta and Korean Air, for example.
Yeah.
And they're cycling buddies. So.
But, I mean, the Alaska thing could be a contractual. We don't know when their contract expires.
True.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic because it does affect people here on the West Coast who, I mean, for us, if you look at ticket prices, it is significantly cheaper to connect on a U.S. Airways flight via Phoenix than take one of the Alaska nonstops.
Yeah, but how much cheaper?
Oh, significant, like $400.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actual money.
Yeah, I mean, for me. The reason I didn't buy the ticket was because I didn't want to take the red eye. But for me, it was about $300 cheaper to take U.S. Airways nonstop to Charlotte, and I just didn't want to fly the red eye, or I would have taken it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is some value there, I think, for people. A lot of people don't realize how much of the Northwest is just leisure travel.
No.
It's not. People don't. There's not a lot of business travel up here. I mean, there's some, but not a lot. So I wonder if maybe they're looking to say, hey, well, we'll just start more flights to Portland and cover the West Coast that way, or maybe they'll start flights out of Seattle. I don't see them opening up a hub in Seattle. It just doesn't make any sense.
There's space in Seattle, is there?
No, there's not. So we talked about this on a show, actually, that there's not a lot of places to put planes in Seattle.
Well, sure, but Delta's got a whole new international complex being built on PFCs, so we'll be fine.
And they get to do Canada as well, so...
Yeah, true. So the next topic is a little more negative, I think, for United.
Boo. I don't remember what it is, but I'm booing anyways.
So there's a few things going on. One was there were some questions raised about the pilot certification and pilot processes at United. And I don't have the exacts about this, but we'll post a link to the story. And I thought it was interesting that this was being called into question because there were some concerns raised about pilot procedures at United. But on top of that, there's been some recent reports, and I've read a few of these now, where people are buying upgrades on United from whatever coach class ticket they're on, being given a price, paying that price, and then after they've flown, being sent or just having their credit card charged for more money, and then being told that that money was actually what the upgrade was supposed to cost. I mean, that's unacceptable. Just kind of ridiculous. And people are saying, I didn't realize it. And you look at the price of what the upgrade was, and it's, to me, it kind of is a wash. You would have never known that that was the price. Some cases it was like $79. And the way United's pay for the upgrade system works is that it could actually upgrade you if you're eligible to a fare class that isn't actually first class. It's an upgradable fare. So for, like myself, a case, a common pay for upgrade is you're paying for the difference between your fare and the M fare, which will be an instant upgrade. And in some cases, you are paying for first class, but it's hard.
Sure.
It's hard to know what that price is, right?
Right, and there's a lot of pseudo first class fares. The sort of what was normally known as like a Q up or an H up, but now it's whatever fare letter they want to use up, where the underlying fare seems absurdly cheap, but it books into a first class seat.
Yep.
And United has had historically, and I'm saying historically going back a long time. Foz, you and I did a trip from Santa Ana to Oklahoma City that you may recall many, many years ago on United, where we got downgraded onto a TED airplane.
Oh, yes.
right? And that was an H up, where they wanted to tell us all we bought was an H fare, and we deserve no remuneration for being downgraded into a TED aircraft.
Was that Oklahoma City, or was that one of the Minneapolis Spokane runs?
No, it wasn't. It was Santa. It was the Cowboy to the Cowboys.
Okay.
That was a Santa Ana to Oklahoma ticket, and it was, I think, Denver, Oklahoma City got downgraded to a TED aircraft.
Oof.
Yes.
And I think, strangely enough, Portland was the United Club that gave us the RPUs, which was, at the time, what the official comp was for that downgrade.
Right. Because I remember being in the club in Portland dealing with it, because we got nothing in Denver.
Yeah, and nothing in Oklahoma City.
Yes.
But, so my point there is, before everybody starts hating on Continental United, just remember that they all fucking suck. And we're allowed one more before it goes NC-17. Sorry.
No,
I think R-rated now. But we're still PG-13 now, but it gets ugly in a hurry.
But it's true though. So hang on, let's talk about this some more, because this has happened to me a few times with the up fares, and it's not just United. I mean, Delta and American both have these fares as well.
Sure.
And Delta, I would say, is more hardline than United on not giving you anything. I mean, Foz, you know the story of my wife flying Delta after being basically she was going to misconnect on United, and right. Delta she had a P fare on Delta or whatever it was. I can't remember.
No, that was that wasn't even a P fare. That was a full first class ticket.
Yeah, and she was told she was downgraded on the first segment and was told, well, you get nothing. And that took a little bit of back and forth, but eventually she got a little bit of compensation. So, but I've had it happen to me in LaGuardia on an A fare, which an A fare to me, an A fare is like there is no up here. This is paid first class. And when I bought the ticket, it said, first class, that was the booking class. Without going into details about knowing what the basic fare basis was, I would have never known. If you're just buying the tickets and you never go into the fare rules piece of the website, you would never know that it was an H up or a M up or whatever fare it is that day. But I was told at LaGuardia, no, you're an upgrade. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm on a paid first class ticket. I would like you to reroute me in first class. And the agent refused.
Yeah.
And I was kind of dumbstruck because at that time I didn't look at the fare basis. I thought it was an A fare, and I just thought I bought a full first class ticket. But that's not the case. So is this a United specific problem? I don't think that's true.
I think the challenge with all of these airlines is these people have been trained for so many decades just to look at the first letter of the fare, and I've had to challenge agents.
That's both customers and passengers,
right?
Customers and employees,
right, absolutely. But on the United side, I can at least speak on that side. When I have gotten people to look at and go read the rules, they're like, oh, this is a first class fare.
True.
But you have to push them to go read the fare rules, and not everybody will, because some will be like, oh, I know that this is an agent, but they just don't understand how the fare bases have evolved over years. Delta, I have no idea.
But what are you saying, Seth? I mean, do you think, to me, this is almost bait and switch in a way?
Yeah, what I'm saying is the airlines all suck.
I mean, here's my thing. If they're advertising one fare, and either through IT shenanigans or hiding some random part of a fee equal shenanigans, neither of those things are okay.
Yeah.
I honestly think that the mischarged upgrade situation that we've seen more and more reports of lately is gross incompetence.
Yeah, it's someone misprogramming something and not noticing it and then expecting people to pay on the back end.
And I just thought of this now, and I'd love to try to talk to some of the people that have reported these problems, but it almost sounds to me like the fare difference is being priced on the round trip value of the ticket for a one-way trip.
Yep.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And I literally just had that sort of epiphany right now, and maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right. We know a guy personally who had this recently. I'd love to talk to him, and I'll see if I can send him an email or a PM and sort of get some details more on his fares. But it almost sounds to me like they're pricing one-ways and round trips wrongly.
Yeah.
Well, the other question I would ask is when you're buying the upgrade, is it actually reissuing the ticket, or is it failing the reissue? And then when it does force a reissue, it charges you again.
Well, so what this one gentleman had told us was he actually flew the segment, so the ticket had to reissue, right? It wouldn't have checked him in if it hadn't reissued.
Well, that's the question. Was he able to check in or not?
Yeah, he got on the flight and boarded and everything.
But was he able to do, did he have any issues with checking in? That's the big question. Or did an agent have to push it?
Okay, we'd have to ask him that, but I don't think so. I mean, the way he made it sound was he got on the plane, he flew the segment, and a couple of days later he noticed a charge on his card, which is ridiculous.
That's rubbish.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer is screenshot, right?
Right. And what's interesting is he said the email conversation back and forth with United was, if you can send us a screenshot showing that you were promised the lower fare, we'll honor it. And
So break out the Photoshop, boys.
Yeah, well, so yes, fake your screenshots and then call in and defraud United, or take screenshots of every single transaction you have with the company. Like, there's something very wrong about an environment where
You have
every
to-
single
yeah.
step of the process requires screenshots, which in and of themselves don't prove anything anyways.
Right.
The irony is all those details are captured in the PNR.
They should be, right?
They are in the PNR. It'll say what it offers you as a buyout.
I don't know. I've posted a screen grab of my PNR from our island hopper.
The infamous.
The infamous, 6 foot long PNR record. I actually posted an excerpt that shows the buyups I was offered.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's recording one number and displaying another because it's doing the maths wrong because of one way versus round trip.
I guess the question is, does it charge them the right amount the first time? Because if it
Charging-
does,
okay.
does
The
it charge them
credit
at all?
card transaction or the
Yeah.
display?
Like, did your friend get one charge when he expected the charge and then another charge later? Or did it come in at like 89 where it was supposed to come in at 59?
No, it came in as 2 charges.
So
Did
what
it?
was the first charge?
What he saw on the screen when he was doing the buyout.
So there's the record. So it's captured in the PNR then.
We're doing this from separate rooms, so I can't really ask, but I feel like there's been both scenarios.
You think so?
Maybe. I've also had a lot of beer tonight.
Requires more investigation.
I think it requires more investigation.
Yeah.
But regardless of which of those scenarios it is, there's something ugly going on. There's definitely been cases where United has tried to go back and charge a different number.
So
There have been scenarios where, you are quoted one price, even just on a straight ticket purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And after the fact, United said, oh, that fare bucket sold out during the process. We're going to actually charge you this number instead.
So from my experience with United, in doing buy-ups, because I've had race conditions in buy-ups where there'll be 2 people buying a buy-up at the same time, the system will actually oversell it.
really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So
I may have done that once on Continental in 2007.
I have bought my $49 upgrade and taken the downgrade compensation for $250.
So let me ask a question then. Let's go back to the H-up fares, the ones that sell as first class on the screen when you're buying the ticket. To me, this is not a good way to do business, regardless of which airline you're flying. It's only
a bad way to do business if, when things go pear-shaped, you say, no, this is a coach ticket.
Exactly. So if you're going to do that, then you better put the terms and conditions of this first class ticket that I'm paying for somewhere where I can easily see them, and don't hide behind a fair rules argument.
Capture.
But at least in the case of United, they're supposed to offer you first. They're supposed to re-accommodate you in that. It's an agent issue, not a policy issue.
True. I mean, but the other airlines are policy issues.
Right. Delta is definitely it is a policy issue.
Yeah. So
And as you say, it's an agent issue, not a policy issue, but
I'll give you an
United
example.
has been very, very aggressive lately of making these systems tell the agents exactly what to do.
Right. So I'll give you an example that I recently had an interaction with agents. So I had for a coach ticket that I bought, I called up to do a buy-up. So normally with the way these work is they will waive the policy says they will waive the change fee. They'll just charge you the difference in fare and reissue the ticket off you go. And I had I called in, first agent's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, well, you might need to get a supervisor involved because they have to put the waiver in. So the supervisor gets involved, absolutely via says this is not a policy, says I will waive the change fee for one of the 2 directions. I'm like, okay, so let's just do one. She's like, no, I'm not going to waive the change fee then. I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I hang up, I call back.
Did you say look at GG buy-up at any point during the call?
No, because I didn't have the code at that point. This is when I asked you about it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So I called back, I spoke with a different agent, and she's like, oh yeah, she's like, the system tries to tell us to charge you, but we know that's rather stupid. And she goes, you want to give us more money. Why the hell wouldn't we take more money? And those were her words. And she's like, so we've been, we know to waive the change fee. I'm like, well, I had this other interaction. She's like, no, she was doing it wrong. So clearly the policy says one thing. Some of the agents know the policy, and some of the others do not.
So see, I've had that
Here's
same
my
experience.
question for you. That's an agent saying this is stupid. And I agree. That is stupid. But is that the actual policy, or is it just stupid?
No, she said it's policy. She's like, it's policy. We've been told to not charge you the change fee when you guys want to do this buy-up.
Yeah. Is this a situation where you have to ask which call center they're in, and if it's depending on which legacy operator it is, hang up?
Well, it's funny. They were both Legacy United.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually thought I was dealing with a Continental person the second time around, but she's like, no, I'm in Chicago.
Huh. It's really
Did
weird.
she move?
She told me.
Shifting basis.
Yeah.
She said she said everyone on her floor knew this policy. So and that was what there was told in their
At this one of
call
his
center.
calls, I don't know.
Yeah, but
Here's the thing. This whole buy your own upgrade thing has been going around for a few years now. A lot of the Australian and New Zealand carriers were among the first to jump on it. And this is kind of the same issue that people have been having for quite some time now. And I'm a little bit baffled that none of the airlines seem to have figured out the business processes around not making this suck for passengers. It's very strange.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Why should we make it easy for you to get into our good cabin?
Yeah, why should we make it easy to pay you for distressed inventory that would otherwise go unsold or given away for quote-unquote free?
This is even distressed inventory. I mean, what Foz is talking about here is maybe discounted, maybe not, but paying the going rate for whatever the premium cabin seat is selling for, and still being charged a change fee.
So this isn't the sort of $50 to $80 upgrade into first class.
If you look at the first class fares, the difference in most of the markets I'm flying lately are like $50 to $100 each way.
So this is, and I mean, Steven, at one point I think you had asked me about flying Mint, and could you buy a coach ticket and then buy up?
Yeah.
And I thought the answer was no, and I sent an email off to some of my friends, at JetBlue, and was like asking about this, and can we make this happen, yada yada. And the response I got back was, come on, you know us better than that. We already have that set up. And their agents know how to do it.
Yeah. And
if you buy a coach ticket on JetBlue and then want to buy, because your expense policy is you can only buy coach, and you're willing to pay the $150 or whatever, or $300, whatever the number is out of pocket, they will let you make the change, on a separate charge without the change fee.
Yeah.
So, and United or Continental had that policy for a long time. Officially, it has carried over to United since the merger. There are implementation issues, education issues, and, idiocy issues.
I mean, it's to the point now where if I don't call, if I want to do it, if I want to pay if I actually want to pay the fare difference and sit in first, I do it within the first 24 hours so that if something goes wrong, I can refund the ticket. Because things have gone wrong to the point where I'm just like, forget it. I'll just refund the ticket and start over. It's not even worth dealing with.
Yeah, the record gets tainted so badly that you can't trust anything in it.
Exactly. So I do it then, and I don't want to have to do that, but it's kind of where I'm at. So
yeah, and we veered a little off topic from the original part of the discussion, which is, and what the hell is United doing, publishing one number for buy-ups and then charging a different number? But this is one of those ones where, is it incompetence or is it sort of gross mismanagement? And I honestly can't tell.
When I told our friend, what did I tell our friend? I said, don't fiddle fart around with United on this, because he was going back and forth with emails with them. I said, just contact the DOT and get it over with, because
certainly if you have the screenshots.
Yeah,
and he did, and it was fine. But at the same time, do I actually have to screenshot now every transaction I conduct?
Yeah, that's the sad part.
Well, not even DOT. I would just go dispute it with my credit card and have them look at the ticket number on both of the transactions, because they'll match.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and I hate to say this, but at this point, if they're charging a different number, I certainly am not going to pay it, and the credit card is the easy way out of that, especially in the United States. But I would get the DOT involved.
Slap on the wrist type thing.
It's one of those things that at this point, like, if it was once every now and then, that's one thing. It has happened often enough and has become public often enough that this seems like one of those things that sort of, if 1% of the people having the problem report it or don't notice or do notice, what are the other 99% doing? Even if it's 10%, 90%, or 50 and 50, how many people are getting completely screwed over by these numbers and don't notice?
Yeah, you could do both.
Well, absolutely. I mean, sure, you can do both. And you've got enough time within the DOT complaint process that if you file it when you notice it, you can go back and dispute the charge with the credit card company later. But I do wonder, and I'm not willing to attribute it to sort of malicious intent versus gross negligence, but how badly are the airlines screwing customers who just don't notice?
Yeah.
I mean, my suspicion is this is a programming error somewhere, and the real failure is the handling of it, not the actual the fact that it happened. Because the thing, these things will happen, but it's all how you deal with it after the fact.
One topic I forgot to mention, and we should talk about just briefly, is the mistake fare on, what was it, British Airways from Dubai to Austin?
Yes.
The sale?
The sale. Air quotes. You guys can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes. I wasn't sure, though. I mean, the only reason I think it was a mistake was because it was priced below business class by like $4,000.
Well, that's probably a mistake.
I think so.
Might be missing zero somewhere? Maybe.
Now if you were United with this new operations center they're dispatching, they would have caught this.
That's true.
Yeah, shortly after a couple hundred of them were sold.
Yes.
So they
the whole point of the United system is like, we'll figure it out faster than you would have otherwise, but not before zero.
At some point. So I guess it was BA was selling tickets on a number of carriers. I think you could get Emirates, Qantas. Was there something else? Well, could you get Qatar? I don't know. Maybe. And then you could get American as well.
There's a remarkably wide choice of airlines in this one, wasn't there?
Yeah. And you could do some crazy routings. So.
Which is why. Part of the reasoning. But an American loves its NPM fares for international travel. I think LA routings were viable.
Yeah.
Oh, I got the LA routing. I was very excited about that.
Yeah.
Some people reported getting LA, going to LA from London and then LA JFK Austin, which is nuts.
The producer and I were able. We didn't do the JFK thing.
And first on the 321.
Yeah.
Nice.
What were you saying, Foz?
The producer's doing the trip with me. Unfortunately, we didn't do the JFK thing, but we did to get Dubai, Heathrow, LA to Austin.
Nice.
What are you doing for Dubai Heathrow?
The BA, because that's the only one I could get to come up when I was booking it. Because, of course, I was on my way to a Seder, and I'm sitting here on my phone trying to do this. And
you were on your way to a Seder?
Yes. Because every Seder needs a token Muslim.
I mean, I wasn't going to say that out loud, except the part where I sort of did.
So, I was the stand-in for that one.
Oh, that's great.
Nice. Nicely done.
But, yes.
So did you only buy one, Foz? Or did you buy?
I only bought one. One for myself and one for the producer.
Gotcha. John, did you grab one of these?
I did not. No, I have a number of immovable things coming up, including a trip to Kazakhstan, and I just couldn't find a time while also actually doing all the stuff I wanted to do this summer. So that's
understood. Seth, how about you? I figured you probably didn't buy one. I didn't buy one.
I did not.
Yeah. I wish I would have, but it was dead by the time I really got a chance to look at it. So.
Yeah, I'm more of the similar to John, except different state of too much other stuff going on, and yet not going to Kazakhstan.
This is a hard life, my friend. It is a very hard life.
I'm jealous. Yeah. And also not because the language issues and...
I speak Russian, so...
Naturally,
yes. So let's talk a little bit about the Thai thing that's going on.
I'm tired of my Russian.
Let's talk a little bit about Thailand, and John, maybe you can fill us in on what's going on there. There was a directive released, I guess, maybe 3 weeks ago about Thai carriers possibly being banned from Japan, South Korea, and a few other places. And what was the reasoning behind this? Was it because their safety standards, or was it because the carriers were deemed unsafe?
Well, as I understand it, it was around the safety authorities not adequately scrutinizing Thai carriers.
Okay.
So it wasn't necessarily that the carrier had been judged to be unsafe, but the regulators were judged to be
incompetent.
Yeah, pretty much. And so obviously that was bad. We got into a situation where a number of Thai carriers, and a few of those were Thai domiciled carriers like Thai Asia X and Nook Scoot, were denied new service to Japan, right? Because that's what happens when you slip down one ranking in the hot or not international safety standards. And so they were allowing existing service to continue, mainly on say, Thai Airways, but these new carriers weren't allowed to start new services.
Gotcha. Okay.
There was a lot of concern about whether or not that would spread. Europe is known for being quite hard on this. Indonesia is in Europe's black books on a fairly regular basis. So, it does seem that that's quieted down a bit. I'm not sure who's made assurances to who.
I feel like at some point it expanded beyond just those sort of initial reports, and like it grew a little bit, and then maybe it scaled back again.
Yeah, I think ICAO got involved very briefly, and then I didn't hear very much from them at all.
Yeah, and I feel like at this point we have heard now that charter carriers are once again welcome to Japan.
Yeah.
So
look, the Japanese tourist industry wants all of their money.
Right.
Let's face it.
Which is interesting because given the current economic situation in Thailand, it's not clear that there's a lot of money to be had.
Right.
But I guess Japan still wants all of it, so there's that.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's definitely some question about who's watching whom and what's going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think if it is the fact that the international bodies like ICAO are getting involved and taking a closer look, then that seems to be the system working the way that it should.
Yeah. Because I know some people that were asking, well, does this affect my bookings? And it turns out that a lot of them, it didn't affect anything. Like their airlines didn't stop flying. Like they didn't clear their schedules or anything. So
and in an interesting corollary to this story, India was recently upgraded by the United States back to Tier 1, I guess, which means that Indian carriers are once again allowed to add new service to the United States. It's sort of the same idea John was saying, it's sort of getting knocked down a notch and not being able to add new service.
So Air India can lose more money.
Yes.
Excellent. That'll be good for them.
Ouch. So you guys got to give a little bit, since you're both in Hamburg, you need to give us a little bit of a, we know why you're there, right? You're there for the AI Expo? Is that how you say it?
Aircraft's Interior Expo, AIX.
And you're...
Spell Expo wrong in Germany.
Yeah.
Yes. And how long are you guys there for?
I'm here 5 nights. I think John's got an extra 2 on me.
Yeah, I grabbed a couple of extra nights at the end, mainly to catch up on a lot of sleep.
And I know, Seth, we've talked about Hamburg before. You kind of love the city.
I do.
So just give us a little bit quick background. You said something about a Colombian dinner?
Yeah, but they serve German beer, so I'm not sure how to feel about that. Colombian beer was an option on the menu. We just didn't order it.
Yeah, it didn't come in 1.5 liters, so we thought, we'd go German.
Interesting.
I love this city. It's a spectacularly, sort of very compact downtown, easy to walk. I walked for an hour today, and that included from where I'm staying out to one of several different waterfront areas that the city has. Not in this case, not the harbor waterfront, but the Altstadt, the old town, sort of by the city hall area. There's a lake and some canals with what are they called? What are the lifts called? Are they just canals? Locks. Yes, locks to move the boats up and down. Thank you. I was making many hand gestures.
There was a very strange hand gesture going on.
It's really a great city. It's a beautiful, compact city, easy to get around. And I walked from there back over to where John is staying. We had dinner and then walked back here to record the episode. And dinner tonight, funny thing about Germany, it's very hard to find food that's not brown in our experience.
Yeah. If it's not that sort of browny beige spectrum, you're probably eating some sort of international cuisine.
That's close. Yeah, I think that's pretty close to true.
Sometimes some of the pork comes out slightly pinkish, but it's a brownish pinkish.
And occasionally some parsley on top.
That doesn't count.
But after you've had the prospect of a week of meat, potatoes, and possibly some sauerkraut.
Parsley is a big win.
Parsley is a big win. And also you start sort of preloading with some international options. And right next to the Airbnb where I'm staying is... I started going, I'm like, is that a Colombian restaurant? And it turns out it was, run by this German lady and her Colombian husband. They met on Gran Canaria, of all places, and now run a Colombian restaurant into the middle of Hamburg, which had the most fantastic empanadas that I've had in quite some time.
Yeah, the empanadas were spectacular. We walked in, it was Buenos Dias when we walked in. She greeted us in Spanish. Of the tables that I sort of listened in on speaking, 80% were Spanish speakers. So
it's
definitely a good, sort of a draw for that community in the region.
Yeah.
We mostly spoke Spanish for, I'll say, the first 15 minutes. We accidentally slipped into German and then quickly just proceeded to English because she spoke that better than, well, quite frankly, than I speak English. But certainly better than I speak German or Spanish. So.
Oh, no, your English is very good. Where did you learn it?
Yes, exactly. Gainesville, Florida.
It sounds kind of awesome, actually.
It was one of those wonderfully random moments.
And she was willing to sell us to-go beers, so we're still drinking on a Sunday evening.
Because it is Germany, and there is nothing open on a Sunday afternoon or evening.
Yep.
We brought a few beers back with us. The strangest part of the evening was the Spanish translation of the wonderful ABBA song, "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme a Man After Midnight." That was I think the pinnacle of the surrealism of the evening.
I got El Noche out of the translation. That was the line I could understand.
I was going to say, you guys are there. I mean, it's kind of, it's early spring, but white asparagus season is starting up. I'm surprised.
It's not Spargelzeit. No. Unfortunately. Also, on the brown spectrum.
It is, which is odd, right? I mean, why can't we just have green asparagus? It would at least put some green on the plate.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. No, it's the wrong color. That's why you had the white asparagus.
Yeah. I love Germany so much, but every so often I'm just like, what I really want is a salad made of actual vegetables.
Not soaked in vinegar for 3 weeks?
Yeah. And look, when the British people are complaining about your food, you know you have some work to do.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's true.
Right there.
So on that topic of Airbnb, since you guys are staying at Airbnb, Seth, you said you had a rant, and since Rollo's not around, I figure let's let you just go for it.
I will rant a wee bit. This is a tough rant. I'm sitting in a room that's spectacularly large and has, as John mentioned earlier, moldings that may or may not have been blown up by his ancestors. But this is a great space.
It's a really lovely apartment.
We've got, and it's actually 2 apartments next door to each other that we've rented for 3 of us for the week. It's really, really nice. This is not the apartment I originally booked for our Hamburg visit. The apartment I originally booked, the host canceled on me, not quite last minute, but, probably a couple of weeks ago, within a month of certainly the arrival time, basically saying her neighbors got frustrated with other visitors causing too much noise and she was breaking the lease and they were going to call the cops. And I was frustrated, but I found this replacement and I booked the replacement and life was good again. And similarly, from this trip, I'm going onward to Japan next week. And so I booked an Airbnb as part of our trip for 4 nights in Tokyo for 4 people, or 3 nights for 4 people. And about 3 days after I booked it, got an email back from the host saying he had to change the booking to a different location because neighbors had started complaining about noise in the space, and he was having the cops called, and basically the same story all over again. And it was, once again, a sort of very challenging situation to me because, this, unlike the first place, he was offering me an alternate, but it was not nearly as nice a space. It was in a worse location. There was all these things going on.
Yeah.
And again, in that situation, I found an alternate accommodation. He actually pushed back. He wasn't willing to let me sort of go, find a different option, and just cancel the booking. I had to get the Airbnb sort of headquarters involved to cancel it. But I like the space I'm in. I'm really happy with where I ended up. I'm very unhappy with how I got here. And I've had issues. I had issues trying to book in San Diego for an Airbnb, where it was very hard to find a legitimate place versus someone sort of, selling whatever they could get, or people running an apartment complex as an Airbnb where they advertise one price and change it to another one when you want them to try to confirm. But I can't say I hate it because I'm in this space that I really, really like right now. Yeah. And I'm really hopeful that, when I get to Japan in a couple days, next week, it'll be similarly lovely. But the process sucks. And the fact that the host can cancel on you essentially last minute sucks.
Yeah. And, it's happened to me a couple of times as well. And here's my problem with it. Is Airbnb takes the money off my credit card immediately, even if I'm booking months in advance. But also reserves the right to just completely say, actually, sorry, not going there, and there's nothing that you can really do about it.
Yeah. They offered me a 10% credit on top of what I was willing to originally pay, but only if I booked a more expensive property.
Yeah.
That seems backwards.
Well, I understand it from their perspective, but so the Japan, this one was $1,000 worth of booking in Hamburg. And then when that canceled, it actually ended up being like 15, or I feel like it was a little more, maybe 20%, but they basically got out of $1,000 booking a $1,200 credit if I was willing to book higher. But it's only on your next rebooking. And if you don't use it, you lose it.
So, some of you guys know that I have a vacation rental. And
yes.
I actually downright refuse to use Airbnb because of a lot of the problems that you're talking about. But also, Airbnb has really caused a lot of problems for a lot of people because now everyone feels like they can rent out their spare bedroom or their house while they're gone, whereas it used to be a little bit more work. So it was a much more selective offering in the past. So I still go with some of the legacy sites because I find the people that I deal with are much easier and the hassles I deal with are a lot less. Now, the challenge is because of Airbnb, all these towns are now coming up with institutions, new rules and new policies, which are actually made, at least in my case, I'm definitely if some of this stuff moves forward, I'm going to definitely have to reconsider whether or not I'm going to continue doing this because their Airbnb has really just killed the landscape.
Yeah. Is that because you're frustrated about having to pay the 10% real estate or hotel tax, or other things?
Other things, actually, in the towns are mandating that the town or the county needs to hire someone who will supervise, or an entire group of people who will supervise all these rentals. They want to, I was reading about one of them recently, you have to, as the owner, you have to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they have to be able to get a hold of you no matter what. Just these insane regulations for, what I would say is they've enabled the lower end spectrum to get into this market, and so they've really disrupted and caused a lot of problems for everyone else.
Yeah, and I hear you on the 24/7 thing. It's interesting to me. Airbnb has sort of advertised itself in 2 different ways. One is sort of the sharing economy bullshit, and the other is make money, rent a room. We're replacing hotels.
Yeah.
And if you're replacing hotels, you have to offer a service level that vaguely resembles a hotel.
Yeah. And here's my other issue, is that hotels, when they're granted licenses and permits to operate, have to offer a certain number of rooms that are, say, disability accessible, or, have facilities for people with reduced mobility
This
or
is definitely
reduced vision.
not one.
Right, exactly. And this is
John and I are
floor
both staying on fourth floor walk-ups this week.
right? And you look, the part of the Airbnb thing is that in theory it's supposed to be sort of your spare room you rent out. Now, I would say that a significant portion are sort of black market apartment rentals.
It's grey market.
Oh, I think it's
very
quite
dark.
often.
It's a very dark grey.
Should we call it slate and split the difference?
Sure. I will also note that while John and I have both called them fourth floor walk-ups, we're in Europe, so technically they're third floor walk-ups.
Yes.
Because they start with 0.
Yeah, and we both had to take great pains to communicate that to people. Like, yes, so we're starting at 1, and
Then
so
keep
therefore,
going.
yeah, keep going.
Wow.
So you don't knock on the wrong door.
Yeah, it's not the disability thing is definitely an issue. And this is hard for me. I have a lot of problems with many things around the way the business operates. The apartment I'm in now is run by a guy who officially owns this building, or doesn't own the building. He owns the floor and rents out 3 flats, and there's no neighbor concerned. That is what the situation is. The place where I'm ending up in Tokyo is managed by a third party who runs the Airbnb for the guy who owns the building.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's almost become a situation where you can either go for the random person who is arguably in line with the sharing economy world that you're theoretically supposed to be playing in, or you can go for the place that's professionally managed and is a proper rental unit.
Vacation rental.
And it's a vacation rental, and you'll actually get what you signed up for, and odds of them canceling on you inexplicably at the last minute are very low.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that because I'd love to support the sort of person who also is going on vacation and wants to make a few extra bucks, in large part because I'd like to think that at some point I could clean up my apartment enough that I could vaguely pay for my vacations that way because, right, trading a New York City apartment for basically anywhere else in the world, I should win. But at the same time, I'm not willing to get someone to professionally manage it, and I'm sure as hell not a professional in that sense, or most other senses.
Yeah.
So, it's a tough game to play.
Yeah, and it's really difficult, I think, to set the expectations. If Airbnb, for example, charges a cleaning fee, which a lot of the Airbnb quote-unquote hosts do, then I expect it to actually be clean. And I hit
and
a
not
situation,
rinse our own glassware before pouring a bottle of champagne into it?
It wasn't just that, but I was in one in Seoul late last year, and it was actually filthy. And I was like, no, this is just not going to work. And I called up Airbnb, and Airbnb was like, well, okay, well, maybe tomorrow we can find you another place. And it was all just really unsatisfactory in terms of any sort of response from Airbnb.
Yeah. I will say that when I called in about my initial Hamburg cancellation, I explained to the guy, I want to book 2 rooms instead of 1 to make up for it. And he's like, well, there's just 3 of you. Why would you do that? And I explained that it's, work colleagues, mixed gendered. We actually needed separate bedrooms. And he made some inappropriate wisecracks and then said, well, let me give you then a couple credits. And so he actually gave me 2 $100 credits in addition to the bonus booking thing. Because I was trying to figure out how to use the bonus booking to basically cover 2 rooms worth that were going to cost a little more than the original booking. And I couldn't do that with their system. Yeah. So he did me right in that regard. But it was still bad.
Yeah.
And the second time I called them when I got canceled in Japan, they were like, yeah, well, you're kind of screwed. Good luck.
Yeah.
And it was tough. So I've written before about how much I don't love Airbnb. It's great when it works well, but I think there's still a long way to go.
Yep, definitely.
I think the last topic, John, you want to tell us, you kind of had a less than stellar experience with Korean Air, and I'm interested to hear this. This was a first-class trip.
Stellar or spectacular?
Less than spectacular.
It was less than something.
It was,
It's a spectacle, though, right?
It was indeed a spectacle. So, okay, I flew out from Paris to Seoul to Shanghai last September and returned in March. And I cashed in a whole lot of chase points, as it happens, for Korean Air First Class. Now, the reason I chose the route that I chose was I was starting from the UK, didn't want to pay UK air passenger duty, and so a quick BA hop over to Paris and a connection on is easy duty. Now, the problem that I hit was that Korean Air First Class is basically a slightly better business class seat, but not all that much better service. It was things like at the airport, only at Seoul's Incheon Airport. So I actually ended up flying Paris Charles de Gaulle to Seoul Incheon, Seoul Gimpo to Shanghai Hongqiao, which is the 2 inner city airports. And then on my return, it was Shanghai Pudong to Seoul Incheon and then Incheon to Paris. And the problem I hit was that only at the Incheon departure was there anything like a first-class processing line. Mm-hmm. Everything else was just this like sort of vague premium passenger experience, which was basically anybody who didn't have the basic entry-level frequent flyer mile card and anyone who was flying business class. And here, I was on an A380 on the long-haul legs, right? So I'm sort of sitting there at the back of this queue going, I realize this is very much a first-class problem to have, but shouldn't first class be going first?
Separate from the other 90 business class passengers and other 100 SkyTeam Elite Plus passengers?
Yeah, pretty much, exactly.
You're awfully demanding, John.
I am very picky like that. And then here's one of my other issues with it is that the seats themselves were okay for 5 years ago when they first started being delivered, but they're pretty much a stock seat that comes from Airbus Sojama, one of the seat makers that comes to Hamburg, actually. And it just wasn't particularly competitive. It was just a very standard international first-class seat. Nothing really in terms of the soft products that made me interested. No, there was a mattress pad that was really very much a pad rather than a mattress, just a thin sort of waffle printed business, and it just wasn't all that great.
What about the food?
Well, the food was fantastic.
What about the wine?
The food was fantastic. The wine was really weird. So so Korean Air doesn't serve champagne on its flights to China or anything else within the East Asian region. But on the Paris route, it has a $250 champagne. Right. This is a Perrier-Jouet 2002 Blanc de Blanc La Belle Époque. This is it's like angels dancing on your tongue and is delicious. The problem is that it goes down from a $250 Champers to a $60 Bordeaux, which was really unimpressive and didn't taste it very much. From there it goes to a $25 Chablis, so a sort of Chardonnay, like an unoaked Chardonnay style, so it's all sort of flinty and minerals, and again, not really great for air. A $20 bottle of Sauterne, a $14 Gewürztraminer.
Where the hell do you find a $20 bottle of Sauterne?
Exactly. You have to really try. It wasn't that the wine itself was bad, but if you serve it sort of lukewarm, that's not really what I expect from a first-class service. All the way down to a $14 bottle of Pinot and a $10 bottle of port. And it just really struck me that, the marginal benefit that I, as a first-class passenger, get from a $250 bottle of champagne rather than a $100 bottle of champagne, compared with what that $150 could have done to the rest of the wine list. Again, I don't want to be picky.
You drank all 3 bottles, so it's really $450 worth of value.
Yes, that's true. I did discover that they only load 3 bottles of champagne on the 12-plus hour Seoul to Paris leg for a 12-person first-class cabin, which was interesting.
And you discovered this single-handedly, lest there be any concern about that.
Right, absolutely. I was the only person in the first-class cabin on my return flight. But at the end of the day, that's one champagne glass, 187 ml glass every hour, which I think is a reasonable showing.
Yeah.
You did well.
Yeah, I think so. But, here's the thing. Korean Air recently lost its VP of guest services, Heather Cho, right? She was the crazy nut rage woman.
Yep.
And I kind of, it strikes me that they're sort of missing a trick here with actually taking the opportunity to look at what they offer and say, is this up to first class standards? If it is, that's great. And there are some things that really are. The service is very good. The first class champagne is lovely, although they should probably drop it. And the food is, the main courses anyway. It is now dinner time. It is time to eat dinner. Are wonderful. The sort of in the middle snacks, the things that some of the newer network carriers in the Middle East do so well, are and now some noodles in soup. Which I don't know. On a 12-hour flight, I kind of feel like they should have upped their game on that one a bit. But if there's a real question over whether Korean Air really needs to offer first class anymore, like there isn't any airline offering first class, and it kind of feels like at the moment it's doing this sort of half-hearted job that doesn't really meet the expectations for the international passenger. And so I find that really interesting as someone who flies first class on a fairly irregular basis, but flies a fair amount of international business and an awful lot of regional low-cost carrier economy. I was just like, look, if I did actually pay, the equivalent of money for this. I cashed in some frequent flyer miles, and I'm not sure I got the value that I was expecting from a carrier of Korean Air's brand caliber.
Well, and you said that the plane went out empty except for you on the return.
Yeah, A380. with just me in first class out of all the 12 seats, which was, absolutely lovely, I must say. A little strange. But, I had the option of having one seat for sitting and one seat for sleeping, which was, very nice. But, I struggle to see how that makes any sense from an airline economics point of view. As a counterpoint, on my flight in, I think there were about 3 or 4 passengers from Paris to Seoul. I think about 2 or 3 passengers each way from Shanghai to Seoul. Which doesn't really strike me as a particularly good use of the space.
Yeah. Now
they are installing some new seating on their regionally configured aircraft. I made a point to choose the long haul aircraft because that's one that has, I guess, what we call international first class seats, rather than sort of glorified business class seats with a little bit of extra service. But yeah, it's a really strange experience, and not what I was expecting. So yeah, if anyone's interested in reading a 1,500 word screed on this, I wrote it up on Runway Girl Network.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes. And it's interesting that you say to me that you chose the international aircraft over the regional one, given that the regional aircraft, the new business seat, which is what you've been on for the short haul flight either way, right? It's only 2 cabin no matter what. Right?
No, it is.
They have proper first?
They have a proper international first class cabin. Yeah.
Into Shanghai.
Yeah.
Wow.
On some flights out of Seoul, Incheon, and one flight out of Gimpo.
Okay.
Again, you have to pick your flight correctly.
Interesting. I was because the new business class seat is actually pretty nice.
It is. It's the BE Aerospace Apex seat, which is what Japan Airlines has been putting on business class for quite some time. And Korean Air has done a thing where it's the same seat in business and first.
But staggering it
and they're sort of, I think first class is like row 1 and it isn't staggered at all. And then business class is sort of row, I'm sure that they actually started at 2, they probably started at 6 or something. And that's staggered, but everyone has direct aisle access. So, it's that I struggle to see how they would really lose, given that there wasn't a full, fare-paying passenger in the entire first class on that flight to Paris. I don't see how they would lose by making their business class better and dropping first. It's strange. Look, I'm a big fan of flying.
But this is the same discussion we have about every airline, right?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, it's the sort of thing where there are some airlines, like Lufthansa, for example. Even their new business class seat is not particularly revolutionary. And if you want a fully fat seat with direct aisle access, you're going to fly Lufthansa first. Same with British Airways right now as well. But American, on their new 777s, has a business class, which is...
And their new 787 seat, and their new 772 seat, and they're, I believe, eventually going to refit that same 787 seat into the 76s, maybe?
I thought they decided on that they were just going to keep the Thompson that they've refit into that on the 76s. Because
maybe not the 76s, but the other fleets are definitely getting the new patented seat.
Well, as soon as is it Zodiac? As soon as Zodiac can manage to produce enough of them, which is of course
we're doing a plan a month for the next 2 years.
Right, exactly. And there are a couple of American 787s that got parked because there weren't enough business class seats for them. That's obviously going to be a topic of some conversation, and has been for some time, right? I mean, there's been a known bottleneck in premium seating.
So that's not a Boeing issue so much as a seat manufacturer
right,
issue.
Exactly. But at the same time, both Boeing and Airbus have chosen to have specific manufacturers who are pre-approved to install on the 787 and A350. Now, if you're going to reduce the number of manufacturers, you should really be pretty damn sure that those seat manufacturers are going to be able to actually deliver the number of seats that they need, rather than just...
Airbus's limit on the 350 was specifically for economy.
True.
That's the catalog.
True. Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, it's not...
Yeah.
And there's sort of, you can buy whatever you want in business and premium cabins as long as you promise that it'll be delivered. But we want to make sure that the 400-odd seats for coach will actually be going to show up on time.
Yeah. So yes, all of which is to say, it's again, it's the most sort of step in this sort of general narrative of what really is the difference and the point of offering an international first class cabin. And it's not just on the US airlines, right? I mean, there's that whole thing about the difference between United Global First and Business First is a soup course.
And Petit Fours on dessert.
Oh, yes.
And a bigger seat.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, there are some real questions to be asked about. For every cabin, does this make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I quite frankly, I fly a fair amount of Air New Zealand Business Premier, which is their business top cabin, and Virgin Atlantic Upper Class, and both of those were a superior experience in every way, apart from literal elbow room at bedtime. in the cabin. And if I were paying real cash money for it, I'm not sure that I would have forked out for Korean Air First Class.
And yet, at the same time, the question becomes, what are you paying for? And for most people, it's being able to sleep on the plane.
Yeah.
More than schedule, or schedule, if I may.
Yes.
And being able to sleep on the plane more than it is not getting your wine served in a thimble. More than
the Korean Air thimbles are hilarious. Is that literally
their wine glasses are so small, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, 3 sips and it's gone.
Take small sips. And I know you don't, so I'm not sure we get 3 out of them.
Yeah, being charitable. The ridiculous thing is that they are these delightful, the sort of actual proper posh shot stemware. Right, this is not cheap glasses, but this is
They're just very small.
They're just very. I mean, they must be sort of port glasses or sort of some sort of liqueur glass that Korean Air uses instead for wine. And they're not suitable for any wine, but certainly not the wine selections that they've made. Just really odd.
And putting aside the fact that they're small volume, let's say there's no space for the bouquet to open up on the nose.
Well, that's exactly it.
Did I sound appropriately obnoxious there?
Very obnoxious.
Good.
Well done. But no, here's the thing. Wine needs every bit of help that it can get,
especially
at altitude.
Yeah.
And particularly if you've chosen wines that are perhaps not the most suitable to altitude, Korean Air. And to have them in this sort of very small thimble thing, it just feels it's weird. It's really weird. And yeah, that's my experience. I mean, I don't mean to rag on any particular airline, but or to make anybody feel sorry for me for traveling in and out of first class and my wine wasn't chilled to the appropriate temperature. Oh, it's a trial. But no, look, if airlines are going to be offering this cabin, it's important to get it right.
Yeah, if you offer first class, it better be first class. Make it first class. Make it feel that way. Yeah.
Never underestimate the power of national pride.
True.
I think that wraps up the show. Thanks for the review, John.
And very small glasses.
And very small glasses, yes. Let's tell everyone where they can find us online. John, as the guest of honor, you go first.
Thanks very much. You can find me on Twitter at thatjohn, and you can find me in all the places that I write for at walton.travel.
Foz?
Sorry. I'm Foz. I can be found on upgrd.com/Foz or on Twitter as Fozem and on Tumblr as Not Mundo Surfer.
Wait, really?
No, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, because a trolling Tumblr site would not be, well, I mean, that's basically all of Tumblr, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. Pretty much.
Now I'm going to have to go register. Thank you.
Shit. Sorry about that.
And there goes the rating.
No, that was not us. Anyways, I probably was. Okay. I am Seth, the Wandering RMA, and I just pushed us into NC-17, but it was, an hour into the show, so no one's probably listening anymore, so we're probably okay. I am at WANDRME on both Twitter and Instagram and various other places, if you put a period somewhere in the middle of it.
Wonder.me. There you go.
Sure, that works.
I'm Steven Seagraves. You can find me at badice.com, on Twitter at sseagraves. You can follow Dots, Lines, and Destinations on Twitter at DotsLines, or leave us a comment on moredotsmorelines.com. We appreciate you listening. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Good night.
Night.
Bye-bye.